You're leading a digital team or a company that uses massive amounts of data and perhaps even generates a ton of data from your everyday operations. So you're in a perfect position to launch an AI project, but you're concerned and you're hesitant and maybe even frustrated, and I can understand why. You have strong business acumen, but you've never led a technical implementation like this before. You don't want to gamble away company resources on something that may not pan out the way that you want it to. And you don't want to put your personal reputation and your company's reputation on the line for something that might just fail. But here's the newsflash. Every company takes risks. Every business leader needs to take risks. And every single company, succeed or fail, is taking them whether they realize it or not. Because the biggest risk that you can take in the age of AI and the age of digital transformation is to stay exactly the same and to do nothing at all. And so what we're going to cover in this video are 4 key qualities that the most successful technology companies and AI startups in the world implement every single day in order to get ahead and to take risks that expose them to the best possible upside while mitigating their potential exposure to harm. These 4 qualities are cultural tenets that every company needs to embed not only into their business and their product, but into the culture of people that brings their best talent together and moves their company forward. We're going to call these 4 qualities the AI startup mindset. They work in Silicon Valley. They work in other industries that have implemented them as well, and they will work for your company if you implement them effectively. We're going to get into it, and we're going to go through these 4 qualities. We're going to examine what they really mean, and we're going to compare them to the alternative. What's the alternative? The alternative is the legacy mindset. It's the old way of doing business that does not build on these 4 key characteristics. It holds companies back. It discourages innovation. It discourages the free movement of ideas and resources to move the ball forward. And perhaps before that, why should you listen to me? So I am a former Meta, aka Facebook, machine learning engineer and data scientist. And I left Meta in order to run New York Strategy full-time. New York Strategy is an AI advisory and implementation practice based in New York City that specializes in working with businesses that make $5 million a year or more. Typically, these are going to be high-growth startups and mature businesses above the $5 million a year in annual revenue mark in developing AI strategies that are custom-tailored to their unique needs and implementing those strategies and putting them into production. And so in that experience, I can confidently say that I've generated more than $100 million in value for the companies that I've worked with by implementing data science and AI implementations. And it's from this experience that I have distilled these 4 key AI best practices and innovative qualities that any company can emulate and that we're going to package as the AI startup mindset. In fact, if you stick around until the end of the video, I will give you a 5th quality that your company can emulate as well. Let's get to it. So the AI startup mindset, very simply, is about using data to learn, decide, and act quickly, even if imperfectly, and repeating this process and as the improvements and innovations compound exponentially. In other words, the sooner you get started, the sooner you will be positioned to benefit from the early improvements that you make. Growth and innovation are things that compound much like interest in your savings account in a bank. The earlier you get started, the more that you learn what works and what doesn't work, and the more that you are generating ideally more revenue and profitability, the sooner you are generating efficiencies which you can reinvest back into your company, and the sooner you benefit from a positive, innovative culture. And so the startup mindset benefits from its early experiences as the company moves forward. And these are the 4 tenets that will benefit you when you bring them together especially, and you implement them as a holistic culture in your organization. Number 1, it is agility over perfection. Number two, it's real-time decision making. Again, we're going to go into the depths of this in the following few slides. Number three, it's crowdsourcing innovation. And number four, it's continuous optimization. If you implement these four qualities, your company will succeed in the spirit of every successful AI startup. It's on you to run a successful business, but these four qualities will absolutely move you forward. Let's start with number one, agility over perfection. What this means is creating solutions really quickly, putting them into production, even if you feel like they're not quite ready. It's very easy to get caught up in saying, I just want things to be a little bit better, a little bit closer to this ideal vision that I have in my head. But the reality is that the world moves too fast for you to wait until everything gets perfect. It's never going to be perfect. You're always going to have flaws, even according to what you think is perfect. And the reality is you're never really going to get a perfect match between this world in your head and how customers actually receive it. So the key is to experiment with the best thing that you can put together within a narrower band of time. Get something, whether it's a new feature or a new product or a new customer offering or trying out a new channel to connect with your customers. Even if you didn't get the recipe 100%, get something out that you feel will resonate with the customers that will most appreciate your product or service. Get what we call a minimum viable product into their hands as quickly as possible and get their feedback. If they think it is absolutely non-usable, trash essentially, then maybe this is a sign that you shouldn't double down and you shouldn't invest into something that's more sophisticated and expensive to put together. And if they think this is amazing, or even some of them think this is amazing, this solves a problem that I've had, then you know that it's worth doubling down on. It's worth investing into in a more serious way. And that early knowledge from your customers, that early feedback is exactly what you need in order to know which direction to take. When companies fail or when they are averse to innovation, the reason that they're averse to it, the reason they're scared is because they think they have to put $1 million or 100% into any new direction that they go in. But what they really need to do is put 5% in at a time, as an example. See if that 5% works or doesn't work. If it does, then put 10, then put 15, put 30. And if it doesn't, okay, then put 5 of what's left into something different until you get something that works. And that is a culture of experimentation, trying different things, rapidly prototyping. In other words, building what we call a minimum viable product, bringing something that is just good enough to functionally work, and get those insights from your customer. See what they think, and then double down on that. And so legacy companies, by contrast, what they do is they wait until everything is perfect, which it never will be. And they hesitate to ever put something out into the market. And as a result, they get outpaced by competitors who are much quicker to innovate, even if it's not perfect. Facebook has this expression of moving fast and breaking things. It's part of their culture. And especially in their early days, and even today, frankly, they're quite good at it. Now they have more resources. They can invest more into checks and balances as a very large and sophisticated company. But even as an early startup, they went into new markets. They experimented with new ways of engaging customers, even new ways of branding themselves, until they got something that not just grew, but grew exponentially. And every company can benefit from the same attitude. And so the second thing that we're going to talk about is real-time decision making. We've already talked about how important it is to extract quick insights from your environment by learning and by experimenting. And so what we want to is to invest into a spirit and a culture of generating and relying on as much data as we can. We want to source data about the real world around us to influence our business acumen in real time rather than waiting for a report that's going to come out in a month or a meeting that's going to come out or take place once every 2 weeks. We want to have exposure to as much real-time analytics as we possibly can. So this involves building an infrastructure that generates as much data as possible and then habituating ourselves to look into that data and feeding it both into our individual decision making, into our automated processes, and into the culture that relies on data-driven approaches. And so analytics should be updated by the hour, sometimes even by the minute. And there are tools that are available to help you do this. Decisions that are dependent on data, which should be most, should be informed with the latest data, not antiquated data. And in so many business environments, it's very easy to find situations where if you rely on data that is just a little bit outdated, you're going to end up hurting the company by basing your decision on something that is not true anymore, where you have evidence of a more updated reality. And so legacy companies will wait until the quarterly report or the earnings call before they make a decision. And sometimes, here's the catch that's not listed in the slide. Sometimes you have to rely on the latest data that's come out or that's become available, whether it's from your internal company or from elsewhere in the world. And sometimes, like we said in the first slide, you have to move with your best estimation. And if you wait until confirmation of 100% certainty comes out, sometimes even that will hurt you. And so a huge part of the AI startup mindset is a bias towards action. Number 3, we're going to talk about crowdsourcing innovation. And what this means is that every single person in your organization has the opportunity to contribute to your culture of innovation. This I will categorize as having 2 dimensions. Number 1, you want to give everyone in your organization access to as much data as possible. This is what we call data democratization. Every person has access to the data, or a huge part of it at least. And as a result, when they have access to data, they will be able to examine it, analyze it, look into really cool things, and make observations that they may not have according to the limited scope of their defined role. Now, with those insights that they've made, maybe out of curiosity, out of a curiosity to see what story the data can tell them as an individual and their business unit, they found something that was beyond the scope of their job. And as a result, they built a cool tool to solve a unique problem. Or maybe they've come up with an insight that can really transform the way you look at your customers or your business processes. And so you give more access, you get more innovation. And so you give that access, but you also have to give them a space that they can voice their opinion. And as Jeff Bezos says, where even the most junior person in an organization has the authority and the space to challenge the status quo and the opinion of the most senior person in the organization. If it works in Amazon, which is a $1 trillion+ company, and they cite this as being one of the critical sources of their success, it's worth looking into in your company as well. It's worth considering giving more people access to data. Sure, setting guidelines, making agreements, and having a data governance series of policies that regulate it, but nevertheless creating and enabling a data democratization so that more people can contribute to a spirit of innovation. It's hard for people to innovate and to come up with really bright ideas if they don't know what's happening outside of the narrow scope of their job. But if they have the work that they do daily, and then they bring that perspective and they augment it with knowledge of what's happening elsewhere in the company, you're almost inevitably going to have so much more innovation. And an example of this is where Google institutes this 80-20 rule, where 80% of your job is to do your job, the one that we wrote out and we defined for you. And 20% of your job is just to have fun by experimenting on something new, taking on a side project within the scope of the company that is not in your defined role, but that you feel is exciting and interesting to contribute to regardless. And as a result of a program like that encouraged innovation and certainly data democratization, they've come up with incredible things, and Gmail, that probably all of us use, is one such outcome of a data democratization and a crowdsourced innovation strategy that Google has used very successfully. An extra nugget on this point in particular is that it's really helpful to integrate your AI and your data science people in every single business division. Anywhere you go in the business, it's helpful to have someone, whether it's marketing, sales, to embed data scientists into every thread in every business division. If you have a supply chain, embed data scientists into your supply chain. Having a supply chain optimization strategist embedded in your team. It's going to make things better. They're going to be able to unlock opportunities for efficiency gains, innovation, and to tell a better story of what you're doing and what you're not doing and what you're missing out on. So the key to any strong data-driven organization, certainly one with the AI startup mindset, is not just to have a siloed team of innovators as an R&D department like the legacy companies, but rather to embed data science both in its spirit and in its human resources every which way in the company. Number 4, we're going to talk about continuous optimization. What this means is that it never ends. It never really ends. AI and the processes that contribute to it are a never-ending spirit of innovation. We've talked about the compounding benefits of such a mindset earlier on. And the way to get to this is to demand new ideas, to test them on a risk-mitigated, smaller scale, and to expand on the ones that do well. We've talked about the importance of experimentation. We've talked about the urgency of rapid prototyping, building an MVP to get feedback from your customers. And of course, this contributes to putting new ideas into the market. But this also means that you continue and you continue and you continue to do it. And it's not just a singular exercise that you try, you test, you eventually find your way to success, and then you settle. You continuously exercise that behavior ad infinitum, forever. And that's what really defines a culture of innovation, not just a moment of innovation. Legacy companies will think of it as, we had an old way of doing things and we're going to go to a new way of doing things and then we're done. It's a transition. And quite frankly, that's the problem with the word digital transformation, because it suggests that you're going from state A to state B. But what you're actually going from is from a stagnant state to a dynamic state. You're going from still water to flowing water and waves and things that continue moving. And so the world around us doesn't change, so it's hard to imagine a company that stays exactly the same as well. It's important to consider that innovation is a continuous practice. An example of this, among many, many, many examples, Netflix. They're constantly improving not only your experience, but the algorithm at large that services all of their millions of customers. When they're putting out different content in front of you and in front of people who have similar viewing behaviors as you, they're improving their algorithm based on what you like, what your response is to some videos, some shows, some movies compared to others, and they're continuously upgrading their recommendation engine. And in many cases, they're improving other things as well. They're improving and testing, of course, the manners of engagement with their customers. They're testing the colors and the layouts on their screens. And in some cases, based on who you are and what experiences you've had, you won't see the same even layout on many applications, Netflix or otherwise, as someone else. So many details are customized because the companies generate a lot of data, they analyze it, they experiment with different features, and they continuously improve and customize and tailor their platforms as much as they can to their customers. And so on that note, I've promised you 4 key traits that any company can implement if they also want to adopt the AI startup mindset. But I'm going to give you a 5th one. And that is what we're going to call customer centrality, but with like an asterisk. Because not all AI implementations are intended for the end customer of a company. Obviously, a company needs customers to make money. But sometimes they're developing an internal tool that's built by one team to service another team within the company. And so what we might want to call this is stakeholder cognizance, where you're really thinking about who the end user is, not only the benefit of customers of the company. And so because you're thinking about the user rather than the customer, you don't always want to think about what's generating the most revenue or what is going to lead the customer to specifically purchase. You want to think about what is the friction that this user has in utilizing the service, and how can I reduce the friction as much as possible. Sometimes it's going to be with another member of your team. Sometimes it's going to be with a customer. If we were to take the example of a customer, then we can hardly go farther than the Amazon example. They're famous for reducing the amount of friction that their most important stakeholders, which happen to be their customers, experience in the process of making a purchase. Over the course of years, Amazon has distilled their checkout process from the moment that you see a product, maybe even before you see a product. They've already generated recommendations of what you're most likely to consider buying. They're recommending things from the moment you get on the homepage. You get on the homepage, you click, you can buy in a single click. It's that simple. And they've realized that the more steps that they include between you finding a product that you like and actually purchasing it, the more pages, the more things you have to click, the more likely you are to change your mind. And then once you get to the checkout page, they don't have any things that you can click on. All you can do is check out. There's no other things. You can't even click on the Amazon logo. They just want you to focus on one thing at a time. Now, they've gotten to this point because they've experimented a lot and they've really put their customer first. They understand the customer did come on the website because they have some kind of a need. They need this product or that, and they do want to purchase. That's typically why they have an Amazon Prime account. That's why they're engaging in e-commerce in the first place. So they want to simplify that process as much as possible and make the experience of purchasing as easy as possible. And so on that particular example, they found that reducing the number of clicks will make it as beneficial for the customer and therefore as beneficial for the company as possible. So with that, we've covered 5, not 4, but 5 key tenets of the AI startup mindset. To summarize, it's all about moving quickly, moving in an agile way, using as much data as we can to inform our decision making, and understanding that the biggest risk that we can take is not moving forward with imperfect knowledge or with a less than perfect situation or a less than perfect product, but it's to stay exactly the same as we are and to hope that the world will acclimate to us. You have to keep moving, you have to move forward, you have to innovate, and you have to do so before things are perfect because they never will be. But when you step into that imperfection, you step into that discomfort, that's when you're actually going to grow and you're going to build the early experiences that will serve to compound a spirit and a culture of innovation that will only grow with time. I'm going to give you one more bonus because you've stuck around to the end as well. And I've put together a 20-ish page guide that takes the AI startup mindset, which is a series of, as we've seen, 5 general themes, and I've taken it and transformed it into a step-by-step guide. Do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, in order to actually create AI projects in your company one at a time. I can make a separate video about it if you want, just comment below. But if you want my personal guide that I use and that my company, New York Strategy, uses with all of our companies, all of the clients that we work with, click on the link in the description and you can get the very, very same guide that we use in all of our data science and AI projects yourself. If you like this video, subscribe and share, and I'll see you in the next one.